Thank you to allow me to contribute to ITD 2026, Linguistic Diversity and Language Rights. I work for the Observatory of Linguistic and Cultural Diversity on the Internet. Our mission is to produce indicators to guide public policy for language online. And today, I'm going to reveal our last set of new indicators about web multilingualism. If you take the curve linking the number of language and the number of speakers, you will see that the bulk of the curve is on the left part, many language, few speakers. On the right part, you got not many language and many speakers. Less than 500 languages have more than 1 million speakers. What does that mean for the internet? There is a correlation between high number of speakers and internet presence. Today, 95% of speakers are using less than 5% of language, and they are more or less the ones which are present online, which means that 95% of language are not online. This is a curve of number of language available online since the beginning. We have been growing, but today, which we can pretend being on a multilingualism phase of the internet, this multilingualism is only concerned for 10% of the existing language, and we got a big problem with 90% of language. English is not the lingua franca of the internet. Less than 20% of humans understand English. English has been the dominant language of the internet at the beginning, but the curve has been decreasing, and today we are in an asymptotic at 20% of web pages which are in English. The media keeps saying there is more than 50% of content in English, and this is not the reality. Our NGO is in capacity to produce indicator for 362 language on the internet, language with more than 1 million speakers, and this is one of the type of product we are able to produce, mixing by language family, African language, American language, Asian language, European language, and so on. And we are meeting percentage of people connected, percentage of content, virtual presence, content productivity, percentage of connected speakers for such language. But in this presentation, I want to focus multilingualism and give for the first time in internet history figures about web multilingualism, which was totally unknown before. We are using two sources. One is dataprovider.com, a database of almost 80–90% of existing websites, and we produce many reports from the database. And the second this year is a program we have created able to collect many indicators, language distribution and multilingualism on any series or websites that we have applied to different fields. Mixing all the source of our inputs, we can already say today on the green part, 1 million most visited website, on the blue part, the whole web, where we have already some data, not all of them. 67% of websites in the 1 million most visited have an English version, but only 20% of web pages are in English, the same figure for the whole web, 20%. The rate of multilingualism of the most visited website is 3.4. The one for the whole web is 1.5, which is higher at the same figure for the human beings, number of speaker L1 plus L2 divided by number of speaker L1, 1.44. The percentage of multilingual website is 37% in the most visited and 14% for the whole web. 7.4 average language per multilingual site, 4.5. We have identified more than 300 different languages in the 100,000 websites that we have measured, and we estimate 750 for the whole web. On the right part, you got the distribution of language in the two spaces I have mentioned, and you can see there are differences. Chinese account for 90% of content on the whole web, but only 3% on the 1 million most visited. What does that say? You cannot take the figure for the 1 million most visited website for the whole web. These figures are biased toward Western countries and West European language. If you take the average of 14% of websites are multilingual and you check by country, you will see it's almost on the middle, it's the median. But in terms of speakers, you will see much more speakers below this average than above. Why so? Because official language country, English as an official language country have a very low level of web multilingualism, 5%. On the other side, you got more than 40% for Arab countries, bilingualism, English, Arabic. You got a high figure of 18% for European countries. If you take by language, you will see that websites in Basque, Ukrainian, Latvian, Catalan, Estonian, and Greek have more than 50% of web multilingualism. On the other side, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, English websites are below the average. If you take by country, Monaco, Moldova, Kuwait, Ukraine, Mauritania have more than 60% of web multilingualism. On the other side, you will have United States, China, South Korea, South Africa, Australia. If you take by type of website, you will discover, which is not a surprise, that e-commerce websites are highly multilingual. If you want to sell your product, you need to speak the language of the customer. Very interesting insight. Economic impact and multilingualism are highly correlated. You will see on the right part, if more economic impact, more multilingualism on the way. Now we'll show you some specific studies by domain. We have studied GTLDs of France, which are geographical or linguistic GTLDs. If you take the .us site, which is Basque, incredibly almost 100% of web multilingual. Spanish and Basque are the same level. If you take Quebec, you have more French than English and a very high IDN percentage of almost 8% because they are hosting indigenous language websites. If you take Paris, you will have a spread more even of language because it has an international location. If you take Breton, Corsican, you will see some presence of local language, 3% for Breton, almost 4% for Corsican. If you take the sites which are only multilingual site of the 1 million most visited, very interesting result, 90% of those sites have an English version. Yet only 13% of web pages are in English. Why so? Because there are more than 7 languages in average per site. 50% of these sites have a German, French, or Spanish version. 30% have an Italian, Portuguese, or Dutch version. Let's talk now to conclude AI and linguistic diversity. The internet is the most multilingual space ever created. The lingua franca of the internet is not English, but translation boosted by artificial intelligence. We are living a true revolution. We are becoming a paradigm shift between intercomprehension toward automatic translation. Yet, what do we do about the thousands of languages left behind? They have the right to be part of the online world. 750 languages have digital existence. 250 only have support. 343 are on Wikipedia. 100 are discoverable. 50 have a large corpus and only 20 have a large language model. This is the challenge we are facing today. Thanks.